What's going on, everybody? I'm Primalliquid and welcome to my guide for Atelier Ryza 2. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to create the perfect max stat weapon for Ryza. Now Ryza is one of well, I say one of. She is the only character that technically has two best weapons. It depends entirely on what build you want to go for. If you're going for an item-based build, then you would actually just use her starting weapon because that is the only one with an effect that boosts item usage. However, if you're going for a more skill-based build, like I am, because it's simply far more versatile and useful, then we're going to be going ahead and making this weapon. Now, before we start, there are a few things you are going to need. Firstly, you are going to need fire and wind essence from the essence refinement. You are also going to need a celestial essence from the light element as well. In terms of what items we're going to need, let's just pull these up right now. So we're going to need at least one of every ingot, ideally multiple. Now these also need to have the max stats on them for the gear synth. Now these will, when you're making these, you would need to then use essence on the actual stat itself to boost it up even further. And again, do that for every ingot, especially the grand organ. Now this one you're going to need a lot of, at least 20 plus of them for each weapon you make. Aside from that, we're going to need an Aldra code, ideally max stat again. We're going to need a dread lever, again max stat if possible. And then we're also going to need some philosopher stones. Well, we're going to need some ancient philosopher stones. Once you have these, then you're pretty much set. You're just going to need a few base materials with the element value spread effect on. So with that, let's go ahead and actually start making the weapon, shall we? Now this is going to be much like Atelier Ryza 1. You're going to start from the lowest weapon possible, in this case the true handmade staff, because we're going to be increasing our quantity by going through each individual recipe. While we're here though, we're going to go ahead and use the celestial essence. What this does is whenever we change the recipe, we gain one extra quantity per change, which means we're going to gain an extra 5 quantity by changing the weapon, going all the way from the starting all the way up to the very end. Now for the very first weapon, we don't really need to worry about what we put anywhere. For animal product, we can use a dread lever for a nice little stat increase there. Obviously, the starting ingot, you can only use the base ingot, so we can't really do anything there. When it comes to lumber, it doesn't really matter. You can't gain any stat bonuses here, so we're just going to dump a random item in there just to open up the next section. On this lumber though, we're going to use an effect spread item. This way we can completely bypass this animal product and move straight on to the mystical wonder by using a startium. And of course, because of the recipe change, we do end up getting more quantity. Now that we're on the mystical wonder, we're going to go straight to the magical section, and right here we're actually just going to go ahead and use a philosopher's stone, well, an ancient philosopher's stone I should say. Once I find them. Okay, you know what? Instead of using an ancient philosopher's stone, we'll just use a crystal element. Makes no difference. It's just my my sorting has changed. So we'll just use the crystal element, save actually looking around for the ancient philosopher's stone. Now we're going to use a cremonea just to move on to the next recipe, and again we're going to gain extra quantity. Now, right here, this is an interesting one. So what you can do, you can either use a Spironite with effect spread, which will allow you to move all the way up to the jewels. I believe all the way up to jewels? Yeah, all the way up to jewels. Or you can just use ingots. Now, personally, I prefer using the Spironite, just because once we get up to jewels, we can then actually use an Aldra code to unlock the next slot, basically. Or, if you did not want to go along that route, you can go ahead and just use an actual cremonea here. And then in the second ingot slot, you can actually use a grand organ. Both of these don't really change anything in the long run. If anything, it would probably be a little bit better to use the Criminea, but the stat difference is so negligible, it is unreal. Then in the duel, again, use the Aldra code just so we can gain an extra stat bonus. One final Criminea there, and we're moving on to the Golditarian weapon, which is the Azure Tier. Okay, now for the Azure Tier, this one is slightly tricky. Basically, we need to get all the way up here to the Sparkling Revelry. However, in order to move on, you normally need to use a Spirinite here. You're locked into a Golditarian here, and the only other item you can use is a random ingot. However, you can actually gain an ingot with the effect spread value. Now, in order to gain this ingot, basically you can only buy the Samastern. You cannot make it. And in order to buy a high quality version with a good attack boost, a good defense boost, but most importantly, the effect spread, you first need to level up Rommy's ingots in the shop. So when you're in the central high street, level up your ingots all the way to level 20, and then you can buy the Samastern ingot with these effects from one of the NPC vendors. So by using that there, we gain the stat booster, but we also move on to the Elixirs. Now, once we're on the Elixirs, I'm just going to go ahead and basically quickly get effect spread free, because we're just going to dump an Archean Cell here. You can also use an Ancient Philosopher's Stone if you want, doesn't really matter. But once that's there, we're going to go straight into the Sparkling Revelry. Now, this is where things become interesting. Straight off the bat, we're going to throw a Grand Organ in, and then here in the Magical, once again, we're going to go ahead and just quickly filter out the effects to a effect spread 3. Or effect spread 4 in this case, sorry. And we're actually going to go ahead and use an Ancient Philosopher's Stone just because of the spread value. So we're going to dump that in, and now with that Ancient Philosopher's Stone in, we've unlocked everything everywhere, basically. Now at this point, we're going to use our Fire and Wind Essence. We're going to use the Fire Essence on the Effect 1 ingot, mainly due to the fact it's the only effect that can actually be boosted up, which is going to be Radiance, which increases core charge recovery according to the current tactics level, and it also reduces the wait time for core items, which is a pretty nice bonus, you know. Even though we're going for a skill-based build, we will be using items every now and again, so having that is very nice. Other than that, we have one more boost left to use. You can use this on whatever you want. There's defense, HP, or attack. Now, because I'm going for a skill-based build, I'm going to choose to boost the attack for this. Okay, so now all that is done, we have 23 quantity left. It's now a case of basically just getting our stats up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dump Grand Organs in pretty much every slot. Well, I can't really do it for traits there, but that's right, we'll get that one later. We can do it here though, so let's max out that effect. We're going to max out the attack with Grand Organs as well. And now at this point, I could use a different ingot here to unlock the trait slot, but that would end up costing me stats. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump all my Grand Organs here instead. It doesn't really matter which slot you dump these, as long as you stick all of them in. And each one that we just stuck in there has now increased our stats even further. At this point, I'm going to be using my traits Attack Charge ++, Skill Charge ++, and Skill Charge +. Ideally, you'll have these traits on the Grand Organ because it's so much easier to get them on that. But here we go. So now, as you can see, attack 543, 224 health, 240 defense, and 354 speed. We're not done though, because obviously we still missed a trait slot there. So now we're going to have to actually go back in via item rebuild and rebuild that item, just so we can unlock the final trait slot. Doesn't really matter what ingot you use or anything like that. Once you have it basically. Okay, so now that the item is successfully rebuilt, it's now time to move on to another process, which is basically upgrading it even further via Dennis's workshop. And this is where we're going to add 3 other effects to the weapon itself. So go ahead and reinforce the equipment. Now here we basically want 3 very specific effects, mainly due to the fact Ryza is very good at being an all-round character. The first effect we're going to use is going to be the 4-color feather S, and the reason for that is, well, I'll show you once I've got all the effects on there what they actually do. For the second one, we're going to go with Adagio, which comes from the Energy Arca item. And then for the third effect, we're going to use the Devil's Pact S. Okay, and once we've selected these items, we're just going to go ahead and confirm. Make sure you choose the correct skills, well, the correct traits, because trust me, there is nothing more infuriating than getting to this process and accidentally choosing the wrong skill. And yes, I've done that myself, which was very, very annoying. Anyway, once that's done, just go ahead and finish the actual upgrade, and then you are left with your ultimate weapon for Ryza. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the actual effects, shall we? So here's the one that we just made, which is a slight upgrade compared to my previous one. That's mainly due to the fact my original ingots were not that good, so I have upgraded them before making this video. And now, as for the weapon itself, obviously we have the Radiance Exile ability, which we got when we were actually making the weapon, and then we have 4-color feather S. This increases fire, ice, lightning, and wind elemental damage. This is a major increase because the best attack item in the game is the Apocalypse, which deals every year elemental damage basically, so this is going to boost that dramatically. That's pretty much why we're using this. The second one is Adagio. Deals additional magic damage when attacking. Damage amount may increase based on current AP. This is actually quite a substantial gain when using normal attacks, especially if you're using something like the clock item to instantly boost you all the way up to tactics level 5, where you'll pretty much be sitting on 30 AP. A very, very nice bonus, and it also seems to gain a damage buff from 4-color feather as well. The final one is going to be Devil's Pact S, which increases critical damage. Again, that is pretty much self-explanatory. You know, we're going to be using crit plus on attack items, so any extra damage via crit is going to be very, very welcome. Traits are very self-explanatory. Attack Charge plus, it's the strongest attack boosting trait in the game, which gives 50 extra attack. Skill Charge plus, which increases the power of skills by 50%. And Skill Charge plus, which increases power by 30%. Now, the reason we go with these is because much like Atelier Ryza 1, skills are just absolutely ridiculously broken once you start getting your gear up there. So being able to boost it by a combined total of 80% is a major increase. In fact, the only thing that is better than skills is a truly perfect setup item build, but that only really works against things like the Lost Lamb, which you have time to actually set them up properly for. In terms of fighting the optional boss on charismatic difficulty, chances are you're not really going to be able to get the setup done properly to really make use of items effectively, and that's why skills are the way to go, once again in Ryza 2. Still though guys, that is going to be it for this video. I hope it helps and I hope you enjoy your new overpowered weapon with Ryza. If it did help or you enjoyed the video, then please be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, then make sure you hit that subscribe button as well for even more Atelier Ryza guides. As always though everybody, thank you for watching and I will see you soon.